the day I received my acceptance letter from Harvard. My cousin knelt in front of me, clutching her stomach. She told me she was pregnant with my boyfriend's child and begged me to let them be together. I couldn't stop grinning. I was just wondering how to break off my engagement with that jerk. Isn't it great to graduate from a top university, inherit a fortune, and become a billionaire? Men only slow me down when it comes to making money. After dying suddenly from overwork, I was reborn. The moment I opened my eyes, I was met with a pair of pitiful eyes. My cousin Sue-ro was standing at my front door, wearing a plain white dress and carrying a large suitcase. It was 1 month before the college entrance exam. My cousin Sue-ro, a junior in college, came to stay with us, claiming that my house was close to her school. Ruru, why didn't you let uncle know you were coming? I would have picked you up. My dad shoved me aside, pulled Sue-ro into the house, and then moved into my room, rubbing my arm, which my dad had bumped and hurt. I squinted. What did I do in my past life? That memory is etched in my mind. Being proud and stubborn. I refused to give up my room, got into a huge fight with my dad, and ended up getting slapped by him. Because of this, my mom and dad had a huge fight, and their already strained relationship was hanging by a thread. Not only that, but after that, Sue-ro started acting all flirty with my boyfriend, Jang Chu-young. Unwilling to let Sue-ro take everything away from me, I lost all interest in my studies and focused solely on figuring out how to get Sue-ro to leave my home and my boyfriend. As a result, despite having been an excellent student all my life, I underperformed on the college entrance exam and could only get into a vocational college. Then my parents got divorced, and I stayed with my dad. Sue-ro framed me for pushing her down the stairs, and my dad kicked me out of the house. Sue-ro married Jang Chu-young, who came from an equally affluent family, with the 10 million yuan dowry my father had given her. But after I graduated from college, I couldn't find a suitable job, so I ended up working on a factory assembly line, where I died suddenly from overwork. After coming back to life, I voluntarily gave up the bedroom and moved into the attic on the 3rd floor. It's not because I'm afraid, but because I want to seize this opportunity to take the college entrance exam. My experiences in my past life have taught me that being strong on my own is what matters most. I'm the only one living on the 3rd floor, so it's very quiet. I study late into the night every day. I pretended not to notice all the little gestures between Sue-ro and Jang Chu-young. Finally, the college entrance exams were over, and I was accepted into Harvard with high scores. It wasn't until I received the acceptance letter that I finally breathed a sigh of relief. I pushed open the attic window and exhaled a cloud of stale air. Now, it's time to settle the score with Sue-ro, Jang Chu-young, and my dad. As I was coming downstairs, I happened to see Sue-ro snuggled up in Jang Chu-young's arms, smiling shyly. When he saw me, Jang Chu-young shoved Sue-ro aside and walked toward me. Han Hwan, you're finally here. You've been so busy with your studies lately that you haven't had time for me. From now on, you're going to spend plenty of time with me. With that, Jang Chu-young reached out to take my hand. I took a step back to put some distance between us. But it looks like you've got someone with you. I gave Sue-ro a meaningful look. After a moment of awkwardness, he regained his composure and said nonchalantly, "Hanin, what are you thinking? The only reason I'm close to Sue-ro is because she's your cousin." Those harsh words made Sue-ro turn pale, but I gave a pleased little smile. Jang Chu-young and I are part of an arranged marriage between wealthy families. Our engagement was set when we were just children. That's why, in my past life, I always treated Jang Chu-young as my future husband, which is why I couldn't accept it when Sue-ro took him away from me. At this point in my previous life, despite my desperate attempts to stop them, Jang Chu-young and Sue-ro were already deeply in love. And now, perhaps because I'm no longer around to act as a catalyst, Jang Chu-young is still secretly dating Sue-ro behind my back. Of course, acting alongside Jang Chu-young would make Sue-ro feel uncomfortable, but that makes me even more sick to my stomach. How can I break off my engagement to Jang Chu-young as soon as possible? As I thought it over, I quickly came up with an idea. I looked at Jang Chu-young with a loving gaze. Since I'm going to marry you sooner or later anyway, why don't we just get married? Get married. Su-ro was the first to exclaim. What's the matter? Don't you want to, cousin? Or are you planning to take my place and marry Chuyang? Those words, which struck a chord deep within her, made Su-ro's lips tremble, leaving her at a loss for words. Zhang Chuyang looked a little awkward, too. Clearly, he hasn't had his fill of the thrill of playing both sides, so I decided to rub it in a little. Chuyang, I got into Harvard. If Auntie found out, she'd be so happy. Did you really get into Harvard? Zhang Chuyang's eyes lit up. When he saw me nod, his face lit up with delight. Just you wait, I am going to go tell my mom right now. The Zhang family made their fortune in the coal mining business a few years ago. Although the coal mining business later declined, they had built up substantial wealth and invested in other ventures. Although their family is wealthy, none of them have gone on to achieve anything through education. Zhang Chuyang is the most educated member of the family. He is 3 years older than me. After graduating from high school, he didn't go to college but entered the workforce instead. As a result, the Zhang family was often the subject of backbiting, with people whispering that they were nothing but a family of nouveau riche who weren't fit to be seen in public. The less they have, the more they like to show off, wherever Zhang's mother goes. She brags about my good grades. Now that I've been accepted to Harvard, she's surely hoping I'll marry into the Zhang family as soon as possible. No sooner had Zhang Chuyang left my house than Su-ro could no longer contain herself. Clutching her stomach, she knelt before me. Henin. I'm so sorry. I'm pregnant with Zhang Chuyang's child. I know. After all, I had pricked holes in the helmets Zhang Chuyang and Su-ro were wearing with a needle beforehand. My forceful words silenced Su-ro's sobs. How did you know? I curled the corners of my mouth, said nothing, and headed upstairs. Looks like we've got a tough battle ahead this afternoon, so I need to get some rest and recharge my batteries. Bang, bang, bang. I was woken up by the loud pounding on the door. Right after that, my dad's angry voice rang out from outside the door. You lock yourself in your room at home, and all you do all day is study and sleep. I feel like I'm raising a pig. Why don't you take a cue from your cousin? She gets up early every day to cook, and she also. Furrowing my brow, I walked straight to the door and opened it. When he saw my expressionless face, my dad stopped his rambling. Suddenly, his face darkened with anger. You little brat. How dare you look at me like that? With that, he raised his hand to slap me. I hurried downstairs, leaving him with an empty target. Downstairs, Zhang's parents and Zhang Chuyang were laughing heartily. That smile grew even wider when she saw me. Su-ro, who was standing nearby serving tea and water, had tears in her eyes. It seems that Zhang Chuyang's family doesn't know about Su-ro's pregnancy yet. TSK. 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 I thought Su-ro was so capable. I never thought I'd be the one to have to bring this up. Uncle, Auntie, I said as I walked up to Mrs. Zhang. Zhang's mother spotted the Harvard acceptance letter in my hand right away and took it to look at it over and over again. Then she handed the acceptance letter to Zhang's father, turned to me, and took my hand. Our Henin is just so wonderful, I absolutely adore you. When my dad came downstairs, she couldn't wait to say to him, Father-in-law, Chuyang is already in his 20s, and Henin is an adult now. Why don't we just have the wedding first and get the marriage certificate later? What do you think? The Zhang family is more powerful than ours. After hearing what Mrs. Zhang had to say, my dad put his frustration with me aside for the moment and forced a smile. Of course. So, when do you think would be a good time to set the date? Seeing that Zhang's parents and my dad had already started discussing the date for my wedding to Zhang Chuyang, I just found it ridiculous. My mom isn't back from work yet, and they're blatantly showing her no respect. Next to her, Su-ro was staring intently at Zhang Chuyang. Zhang Chuyang, who was usually charmed by Su-ro's smile, sat upright, pretending not to notice her hints. TSK. In the face of financial gain, their love seems to mean very little. Otherwise, Let's set the date for next month and have the wedding before Henin starts school. Sounds good to me. Zhang's parents and my dad hit it off immediately. At that moment, I spoke up. Uncle, Auntie, I want to marry Chuyang too. Butaz, I spoke. I shot Su-ro an accusing look and said, with a pout, but she actually seduced Chuyang behind my back, and now she's pregnant with his child. My words sent a shockwave through the room. Hannah, aren't you making a mistake? She's your cousin. I wish I could say I was mistaken. But she told me this herself not long ago. At that moment, the eye drops I'd put in earlier could finally take effect. A tear fell with a plop. I lowered my head and pretended to cry. But out of the corner of my eye, I was watching Su-ro. Of the 3 Su brothers, only my dad got into college and married my mom. He used my mother's family's influence to establish the Su group. But my mother is the one who really runs the show. My father is just a figurehead CEO. As for my father's older and younger brothers' families, although their lives had improved considerably thanks to my father's discreet support, they were still nowhere near as well off as ours. Su-ro has envied me ever since she was a child. I've made myself perfectly clear. If Su-ro doesn't seize this chance to marry into a wealthy family, I'll lose all respect for her. Fortunately, this time, she didn't let me down. With everyone watching, Su-ro knelt before Mr. and Mrs. Zhang. Uncle and Aunt Chuyang and I truly love each other. Before Zhang's parents could react, Zhang Chuyang had already jumped to his feet. I definitely used protection. There's no way you could be pregnant. In a nutshell, let's settle this once and for all. Chuyang, I don't know how this happened either. Didn't you say you didn't like Sui Han at all? Didn't you say she was stiff and dull, and that sooner or later you'd break off your engagement with her and be with me? You also said. Shut up. In a fit of impatience, Zhang Chuyang slapped Su-ro across the face. The next moment, Zhang's father kicked Zhang Chuyang in the stomach. You good for nothing. You've brought shame on the entire Zhang family. Why are you hitting my son? Zhang's mother protested. It's obvious that slut Su-ro seduced my son. If anyone deserves a beating, it's her. Zhang's mother grabbed Su-ro by the hair. My dad rushed over to stop him. In a fit of rage, Mrs. Zhang even scratched my dad, afraid she'd get scratched in the face. My dad took a step back, and then Su-ro was pinned to the ground and beaten by Mrs. Zhang. Unable to escape, Su-ro suddenly clutched her stomach. My baby, my baby. A streak of crimson flowed from Su-ro's legs onto the floor, fearing she might be implicated in a fatal accident. Zhang's mother quickly stopped what she was doing and called an ambulance. Half an hour later, Su-ro was carried into the ambulance. Zhang's parents, Zhang Chuyang, and my dad followed nervously behind. I sat on the sofa in the living room, watching the figures heading toward the door, a cold smile playing on my lips. Just then, a dark gaze swept over them. It's my dad. He suddenly turned around and caught the smile on my face. I instinctively suppressed my smile, but quickly realized that I was no longer the timid, helpless person he had crushed in my past life. I looked up and flashed my dad a cheeky smile. The first time he saw the defiant look in my eyes, my dad flew into a rage, as if he were going to come back and settle the score with me. But the ambulance outside couldn't wait, so he had no choice but to get in and leave. The ambulance had barely left when my mom came back, dressed in a tailored business suit with her hair pulled back. She was in her 40s, though fine lines had begun to appear at the corners of her eyes. She still possessed a certain charm, only her hair was slightly disheveled. She had clearly rushed back in a hurry. Han Huan, Auntie told me something happened. What's going on? Though her tone was a bit cold and stiff, she was so busy with her career her eyes were filled with concern. Unfortunately, I didn't see that kindness in my past life. Back then, it never even occurred to me that Mom might be working so hard for my sake. I just thought she was too busy working to make money and didn't love me at all. I've been a rebellious child since I was little, always going against my mom, even when my mom gave up the Su group and divorced my dad, on the sole condition that she take me with her. I refused to accept defeat at the hands of Su-ro and resolutely chose to go with my dad. In the end, My disappointed mother took nothing with her, left with nothing, and moved abroad. As I thought about it, my eyes began to well up. Mom. I threw myself into her arms and held her tight. Mom, you're finally back. In my past life, my mother and I were rarely close. Since I was reborn, we've grown much closer. Still, compared to ordinary mothers and daughters, there's a bit more distance between them. My mother's body stiffened for a moment. Then she relaxed and patted my back awkwardly. Hanin, did something upset you? I nodded and told her what had happened today. Zhang Chuyang and Su Ro are actually secretly dating. And they even have a child. This is outrageous. My mom said angrily. I'm going to go confront them right now. The Zhangs and the oldest son's family have to give me an explanation today. With that, my mom took me by the hand and led me out the door. Drive me to the hospital. When we arrived at the hospital, Su Ro was lying on the hospital bed, barely clinging to life. Zhang's parents, Zhang Chuyang, and my dad were all in the hospital room. The other three looked grim. But my dad was the only one who asked Su Ro how she was doing. Ruru, does it hurt? Are you hungry? If you're not feeling well, tell uncle. My child Su Ro stroked her belly, tears streaming down her face. My dad's tone softened. The child is fine. All you need to do now is take care of yourself. Don't worry about anything else. Thank you, uncle. Ha. Unable to bear it any longer, my mom pushed open the hospital room door and snapped. You weren't nearly this considerate when you were taking care of Hanin. Anyone who didn't know better would think Su Ro wasn't your niece, but your illegitimate daughter. My mom is just like my mouth, she says everything I want to say. As expected. My dad was furious too. Although he isn't very capable in his career, he loves nothing more than to outdo my mom when it comes to temper. Jin Yunru, what nonsense are you talking about? I've seen my dad like this many times, but this time, I caught a glimpse of something on my father's face that I had never noticed before. A hint of guilt. I glanced at my dad, then at Su Ro on the bed. A bold idea took shape in my mind. Am I making this up? Su Ro is so shameless she'd even steal Hanin's fiancé. And yet you're still defending her. Do you even care about Uzmi and my daughter? Su Ro is just a child. She doesn't know any better. Besides, she's not just Anyonesh's my niece. Just as it looked like the two of them were about to get into a huge fight, I quickly grabbed my mom's hand. Mom. Coming to her senses, my mom took a deep breath, put her anger toward my dad aside for the moment, and turned to look at Mr. and Mrs. Zhang. Mr. and Mrs. Zhang, who had been watching the play, immediately looked concerned. In-laws. Don't call me in-law. Since your son can't behave himself, let's just call off this marriage. Before Zhang's parents had a chance to respond, my dad stepped forward in a hurry. Never mind, what a shame. Why don't we let Ro marry Chuyang instead of Ihan? No way. Mrs. Zhang's eyes widened instantly. Hanin got into Harvard. But what about Su Ro? She went to some unknown fly-by-night college. And she's from the countryside. The Zhang family wouldn't dream of accepting a daughter-in-law like that. As far as I'm concerned, let Su Ro get an abortion. Go back to the countryside. And let's just pretend this never happened. We can't let some slut ruin the harmony between our two families. Can we? In-laws. Mrs. Zhang looked at my mother. My mom glanced at my dad's grim face. She patted my hand reassuringly, then said slowly, I suppose that's not a bad idea. Seeing that my mom had relented, Mrs. Zhang breathed a huge sigh of relief. In that case, I'll have the doctor prepare for the abortion right away. With that, Mrs. Zhang set out to make the arrangements. Su Ro, who had been lying in bed and could barely speak, suddenly jumped out of bed and clung to Zhang Chuyang's legs. Chuyang, how can you do this to me? Wah. Her tears streamed down her face like raindrops on pear blossoms. Zhang Chuyang looked conflicted. Seeing this, Zhang's mother flew into a rage. You slut. Don't you dare touch my son. With that, she lunged at Su Ro. Just then, two figures burst in. If you dare to bully my daughter, I'll fight you to the death. It was Su Ro's parents who burst in. They had obviously just heard the news and rushed over. When they saw Su Ro being bullied, they immediately pushed Zhang's mother aside and beat her. Zhang's father joined the fray as well. Su Ro's parents were used to farm work and were very strong. Mr. and Mrs. Zhang were no match for them. Seeing his parents being beaten until they were screaming in pain, Zhang Chuyang rushed in as well. The 6 of them were rolling around on the ground in a heap. Ha! I couldn't help but laugh out loud. The laughter caught my dad's attention. He strode toward me, looking furious. Sui-han, this is going too far. If it weren't for you, how would things have come to this? Me? What does that have to do with me? Isn't it Su Ro who has no shame? Shut up. I won't. What? Could it really be true? Just like my mom said that Su Ro isn't your niece, but your illegitimate daughter. As soon as I finished speaking, my dad's face turned ashen with anger. Nonsense. I'm going to teach you a lesson today. With that, my dad raised his hand to slap me. My mom instinctively shielded me with her body. You dare? Why wouldn't I dare? Jin Yunru, if you try to stop me, do you think I won't beat you up too? Ha! A cold. Mocking teenage voice drifted in from outside the hospital room. That's hilarious. It's the first time I've ever seen a father who can't stand to see his own daughter doing well. I turned around and saw a face that was both unfamiliar and familiar. The boy had delicate features and a child-led face. He was exceptionally handsome. The scrape at the corner of his eye and the blood at the corner of his mouth didn't detract from his good looks. If anything, they added a touch of allure. There was a distinct look of malice in his eyes. He looked downright menacing. It's my high school classmate, Qin Zhou. I haven't seen many of my high school classmates since I graduated. The reason he seemed familiar was that I had happened to see him once before I was reborn. That day, I was heading home from work as usual when I was stopped by 2 men on the street. Qin Zhou pulled up in his luxury car. He simply honked the horn, and the 2 men were so scared they ran off. I thanked Qin Zhou, and he said, "You're welcome, old classmate." Only then did I manage to dig up a few scattered fragments of memories about Qin Zhou from the depths of my mind. I'm grateful, but I also feel embarrassed. My high school classmates are doing really well, but as for me, pulling my wandering thoughts back, I looked again at the face before me. He isn't as composed now as he was before I came back to life. He seems much more immature, but he's still handsome. Who do you think you are? My family's business is none of your business. You little brat. Today, I'm going to teach my daughter a lesson. Mocked by an outsider. My dad, who had an extremely strong sense of pride, felt even more humiliated. He rolled up his sleeves and was about to punch me. My mom shielded me with her body. But his slap didn't miss its mark. He actually planned to hit my mom too. I reached out to block my dad's slap, but a hand beat me to it and clamped down firmly on his arm. It's Qin Zhou. My furious father wanted to teach Qin Zhou a lesson too, but Qin Zhou was holding his hand, so he couldn't move at all. The 2 stood facing each other. Qin Zhou looked relaxed, but my dad's face had turned as red as a pig's liver. Finally, the medical staff noticed the commotion and rushed into the ward to break up the fight. My dad quickly withdrew his hand and turned to look at Su Ro. I turned around to thank Qin Zhou, only to find that he had already walked away. At the end of the long corridor, he stood, looking frail. Loneliness hangs heavy in the air. Half an hour later, with the hospital staff's reassurance, the crowd finally calmed down, except for my dad, who pretended to care about Su Ro but was actually keeping his distance. Everyone else had smudged makeup, disheveled hair, and looked a complete mess. The Zhang family walked around with their chins held high, acting all high and mighty. Su Ro's parents, meanwhile, hung their heads, looking anxious. Their greatest dream was to see Su Ro marry into a wealthy family. Yet just moments ago, that very family had been soundly defeated by them. Su Ro must have that baby aborted. Zhang's father snapped angrily. Zhang's mother chimed in. I'd rather die than let Su Ro marry into our family. That's out of the question. Su's father protested. Your son, Zhang Chuyang, Got our daughter Su-ro pregnant. If you don't take responsibility, we'll go cause a scene outside your company and let everyone judge for themselves. Mr. and Mrs. Zhang looked grim at Mr. Su's words. 200,000. That's a human life. You think you can buy a life for 200,000? You guys. Zhang's father cut off Su's mother's relentless demands. 500,000. No sooner had he finished speaking than Su Daqiang and Lu Meifang eagerly nodded. Deal. Lying in her hospital bed, Su-ro broke down and fainted. I'm so dizzy. Unfortunately, even if she fainted, she couldn't escape the fate of ending up on the operating table. After dealing with the Su Daqiang family, Zhang's exhausted parents turned to my mother and said, "In-laws. Once Su-ro loses the baby she's carrying, let's have Chu-yang marry Yihan. What do you think?" My mother's eyes flickered slightly. That depends on how your son, Chu-yang, behaves. Don't worry. If Chu-yang ever messes around again, I'll break his legs. Mrs. Zhang pulled Zhang Chu-yang over. Zhang Chu-yang nodded absently in agreement. His eyes kept glancing in the direction Su-ro had been pushed away. We didn't stay to chat with Mrs. Zhang for long. My mom took me away. In the car, my mom asked me as she drove, "What do you think about your marriage to Zhang Chuyang?" I wouldn't have that kind of jerk for anything. Just thinking about Zhang Chuyang fills me with disgust. I feel physically sick with disgust. Cheating is cowardly and irresponsible. There isn't a single good thing about him. In my past life, I must have been completely out of my mind to actually fight with Su-ro over a pile of dog shit. My words seemed to lift some of the worry from my mother's brow. So what do you want to do now? I want to call off my engagement to Zhang Chuyang. If I drag things out with Zhang Chuyang for a while, it would certainly hurt both him and Su-ro even more. But just the thought of being known as Zhang Chuyang's fiancé makes me feel sick. Mom, if Su-ro has an abortion, won't the Zhang family just keep clinging to me? I shared my concerns with my mom. She gave me a reassuring smile. Don't worry. Leave it to Mom. As soon as we got home, my mom called Mrs. Zhang first. In-laws. Has Su-ro had an abortion? Not yet. The doctor said we have to wait until she wakes up to check her condition before performing the surgery. I can tell that bitch Su-ro is just faking it. Exactly. A guy who can seduce his own sister's boyfriend can't be a good person. In-laws. Don't let your heart go soft at a critical moment. It's not like Chu-yang can't have kids once he and Henin get married. They'll have 10 or 8 of them. After hanging up with Mrs. Zhang, my mom looked at me. Before I could even ask, she told me, Zhang Chuyang is an only child. His parents went to great lengths to have him. Apparently, his father had some issues in that department. So, since Mrs. Zhang is concerned about carrying on the family line, she might not let Su-ro go under the knife. My eyes lit up. My mom smiled and tapped my forehead. Smart. That way, the Zhang family won't have the nerve to keep pestering us. And as for Su-ro, even if she manages to give birth to the child, the Zhang family won't have any use for her. Hearing that, I looked at my mom with admiration. Mom, you're amazing. My mom smiled as she hugged me and gently stroked my head. My daughter, no one is allowed to bully you. As I felt my mother's warm embrace, my eyes began to well up. My mom used to say that all the time. How did I get back? I said, if you really don't want me to get pushed around, you should go and win Zhang Chuyang back for me. But Henin, Zhang Chuyang isn't worth it. Whether it's worth it or not, I just like him. I was like a woman possessed. My only wish was to tear Su-ro and Zhang Chuyang apart. Unable to persuade me, my mom went to beg Mr. and Mrs. Zhang, but they looked down on her. That's right, even though Zhang Chuyang has treated me this way, I still don't want to let go. With a daughter like me, won't people look down on my mom? Han Huan, what's wrong? Sensing my emotional turmoil, my mom asked with concern. I buried my face in my mom's lap and said in a muffled voice, Mom, I don't think Dad deserves to be my dad. Just as she hadn't been close enough to me in the past. There was always a certain distance between my mom and my dad. My mom is always busy with work, while my dad spends her money recklessly and acts all high and mighty. Looking back now, there had long been problems in their relationship, but out of consideration for me, my mom insisted on staying with my dad. But now that I see things clearly, I don't need a father who doesn't care about me or pay me any mind. I hope my mom will file for divorce from my dad. But she didn't. She just held me tightly, and after a long while, she let out a sigh. Although I'm a little disappointed, I can understand why. After all, in my previous life, my mom didn't file for divorce from my dad until a year later, by which point Zhang Chuyang, Su Ro, and my dad had already driven me to the brink of a nervous breakdown. She was completely disappointed in my dad and wanted to take me away. And now, apart from standing up for Su Ro, my dad doesn't seem to have done anything else that's unforgivable. Although I really want to get away from my dad as soon as possible, I know there are some things you just can't rush. This afternoon, my mom went out to make arrangements for my graduation banquet. I called all the servants in the villa over and ordered, "Throw all of Su Ro's belongings out." Yes, I put up with Su Ro for a while earlier so I could focus on my studies. From now on, I won't give anyone the chance to hurt me again. After all of Su Ro's belongings had been thrown out, the maid cleaned my room, and I moved back from the attic. That evening, my mom had barely gotten home when my dad came back. When he saw us, his expression was no longer arrogant. Instead, he looked a little sheepish. He walked up to my mom, took her hand, and said, "I was really upset at the hospital earlier today. Please don't be mad at me, even when he knows he's done something wrong." My dad never apologizes. He's definitely up to something now. My mother withdrew her hand, her expression impassive. "Judging by the look on your face, did you not abort the child in Su Ro's womb?" Caught off guard by having his thoughts laid bare, my dad looked a little embarrassed. Zhang Chuyang had a medical exam, and it turns out he has low sperm count. It's going to be hard for him to have kids in the future. So this was really our only option. So what? My mom stared intently at my dad, faced with my mother's composure. My father's inner guilt turned to anger. It's Yihan's own fault for not winning Zhang Chuyang's affection. Since Ro is already carrying Chuyang's child, we might as well give the marriage to her. My mom has a strong temper too, and her face darkened on the spot. "Su Jinan, I don't care about this marriage." "But what do you mean? What do you mean by saying Henin isn't likable? In your eyes, is your niece Su Ro the only one who's likable? Isn't that right?" My dad stood up. Slamming his fist on the table, he pointed at me. "Look at her acting like I owe her millions. What's so likable about that? It's nothing like Ruru, who brings me tea and water, checks in on me, and even..." "Shut up." My mom was so angry her chest was heaving. Afraid my mom would get so upset it would make her sick, I hurried over to help her calm down. "Mom, we won't let it get to us. It's fine if Dad doesn't care about me, at least I still have you." Seeing my concern, my mom took a deep breath and tried her best to suppress her anger. Ignoring Su Jinan, she took my hand and led me upstairs. Upstairs, she looked at me and said, "Your dad." She wanted to say something, but the words were on the tip of her tongue. Yet she just couldn't bring herself to say them. I took my mother's hand in mine. "Mom, in my heart, I don't have a father. From childhood on, my father never showed any interest in me, never took care of me, never attended my parent-teacher conferences. Never. He wasn't involved in any of the big or small events in my life. In fact, he didn't have the slightest bit of affection for me, only contempt. But he was different with Su Ro. It was only in front of her that he acted like a father. Sometimes I even feel like, thinking of that suspicion deep down, I clenched my teeth and continued, "I think he believes Su Ro is his real daughter, and that I'm just a stumbling block who's stolen her place." Han Huan. Startled by my words, my mom gasped, "I can promise you, you're your father's child. As for Su Ro, your father is a selfish man. He's always wanted to drain me dry to support his two brothers. Deep down, he feels that he and his two brothers are the real family. And that I'm an outsider. He puts you on the same level as me. which is why he treats you. Su-ro definitely isn't your father's child. So don't worry. If your father doesn't love you, I'll love you twice as much. Hearing this, I nodded and didn't dwell on the matter any further. Instead, I said, so my dad wants Su-ro to marry Zhang Chuyang, and Zhang's parents accepted her because she's pregnant. If that's the case, it would be too easy on Su-ro. Of course not. I know Mr. and Mrs. Zhang's character all too well. They're probably hoping Su-ro will give birth to the baby in secret, so that you and Zhang Chuyang can raise it later. They've asked your father to come back and act as a mediator, but there's no way your dad would let his precious niece suffer like this. So he came back this time specifically to have me step in and persuade Mr. and Mrs. Zhang to let Su-ro marry into the Zhang family. I'm not that stupid. After that argument with your dad just now, I doubt he'll be able to bring himself to ask. After hearing what my mom had to say, I couldn't help but give her a thumbs up. My mom really is the best. That's right. My mom said with a smug look on her face. Your graduation party is set for 3 days from now. I'll send you the hotel address on WeChat in a moment. Just focus on inviting your classmates to the party over the next few days. Leave everything else to mom. On the day of the graduation banquet, I'll announce to everyone that you and Zhang Chuyang have called off your engagement. Okay, mom. Back in my room, I was still a little puzzled. My mom is even more capable than I thought. She's so smart she could have been certain that Su-ro wasn't my dad's biological daughter. Could it really be that I was wrong about this? I shook my head and put the matter out of my mind for the time being. I took out my phone and sent invitations to the graduation celebration to a few close friends. As I finished extending the invitations, Qin Zhou came to mind. He was in the same class as me, but back in high school. I hardly remember him at all. As far as I can remember, he always sat in the back row of the classroom. During class, he was either sleeping or playing on his phone, and the teacher didn't bother with him. He was always getting into fights, and his parents were constantly being called to school. He was the classic rebellious student, but because he was so handsome, his desk drawer was always stuffed with love letters. But he never even touched those love letters. He just threw them in the trash on a regular basis. We've had very little contact. Yet in both this life and the last, he's come to my aid twice. After hesitating for a moment, I sent Qin Zhou a text message. Since I didn't know him very well, I kept my tone fairly polite. I'm having a celebration for my college acceptance in 3 days. Are you free? I didn't expect them to reply so quickly, just a single word. Okay. A few close friends of mine are holding their college entrance celebration dinners over the next few days. Regardless of how well they did on the exams, that day, I was all dressed and ready to go when my dad, sitting on the couch, gave me a once-over, a sharp look in his eyes. "Ihan, what's up?" I asked coldly, frowning in displeasure. My dad said, "Your cousin is still in the hospital recovering. How can you even think about going out to have fun? If that's the case, with your cousin still in the hospital bed, how can you possibly be in the mood to sit at home drinking tea? I think you should be at the hospital, staying by her side the whole time." I shot back without holding back, which made my dad's face fall. "I stayed up late last night, so I just couldn't stay awake today. Could I?" Oh. I was in a hurry to leave and didn't feel like wasting any more words on him. As I reached the door, I heard my dad's voice again. "Remember to stop by and see your cousin sometime. I suspect the real reason isn't to have me visit Su-ro, but to take the opportunity to have her try to change my mind." Ignoring his words, I turned and walked away. After attending my friend's graduation celebration, I asked the driver to take a detour to the hospital on the way back. When I arrived at the hospital, Su-ro was sitting on the bed eating fruit that Su Daqiang and Lu Meifang had given her. Our Ruru is really something. Looks like she's bound to marry into a wealthy family sooner or later. What good is it that Su Ihan is such a good student? She can't even keep a man. When you get married to Zhang Chuyang, ask your uncle to give you a bigger dowry. The three of them were crunching the numbers like crazy. I pushed the door open at just the right moment and walked in. But Auntie Zhang just called me and told me that Chu Yang would never marry Su Riz, planning to send her back to the countryside as soon as she gives birth. My words caused the expressions of the people in the room to change dramatically. Han. At this point, even if you marry Zhang Chuyang, you'll only have him, not his heart. At that moment, the smug look vanished from Lu Meifang's face, replaced by an expression of deep anguish. Han, you've had it easy since you were a child. You've never wanted for anything. Ruru is different. Could you please stop competing with her for Chu Yang? As Lu Meifang spoke, Su Ro was already in tears. Han Huan, for the sake of our sisterly bond, can't you just let me off? Su Daqiang remained firm. Han, even if you refuse to call off your engagement to Chu Yang, your father will find a way to make Su Ro marry him. If you don't let go now, you'll be the one who ends up looking foolish. The three of them worked in perfect harmony, using a mix of persuasion and pressure. If this were the kind, timid person I used to be, I'm afraid I would have blamed myself long ago. But, what do you mean? Let you off the hook? You shamelessly seduced my fiancé. And it's Su Ro who's carrying his child. I must have been cursed for 8 lifetimes to have gotten mixed up with people like you. Let me tell you this, Su Ro, no matter what tricks you pull, I won't back down from my marriage to Zhang Chuyang. Go ahead and have the baby. When the time comes, your child will call me mom, while you'll never be able to see the light of day at best. The child will call you auntie. Upon hearing this, everyone in the room was so furious they were speechless. Bang! Just then, the lady who had just come in to deliver the food accidentally broke a bowl. Sorry. I'm just clumsy. She scrambled to pick up the broken pieces of ceramic from the floor and accidentally cut her hand. Unable to stand by and watch, I stepped forward. Let me handle this. I crouched down and helped her pick up the broken pieces of the bowl. After picking them up, I stood up, ready to throw them in the trash. As I looked up, my gaze happened to fall on the face of the woman delivering the food, and I couldn't tear my eyes away. She looks just like Su Ro. The suspicion I had previously pushed aside resurfaced once again. Noticing that I was staring at her face, the lunch lady quickly looked down and said to me, "Thank you. It's okay." I patted her shoulder reassuringly, accidentally pulling a strand of hair from her head in the process. As soon as I stepped out of the ward, I saw Zhang Chuyang. He looked thrilled. Han Huan, that's wonderful. You don't mind that Su Ro is carrying my child. And you're even willing to be the child's biological mother. Don't worry. I'll treat you well from now on, he said, looking into my eyes with deep affection. It seems he overheard what I said in the ward just now. I'm about to burst. How blind was I in my past life to let Su Ro snatch this thing away from me? What about Su Ro? I turned up the volume on purpose. Once she gives birth, just give her some money, Zhang Chuyang said nonchalantly. Inside the house, another gasp went up as Zhang Chuyang spoke. Su Ro fainted again. As for whether I'm really dizzy or just pretending, I don't care. I looked at Zhang Chuyang with a blank expression. What I said just now was just to provoke Su Ro. From the moment you started getting involved with her, our relationship was over. Please go home and tell your parents this, so they don't go around telling everyone that I'm going to be your future daughter-in-law. It's actually pretty embarrassing to be associated with people like you. After saying that, ignoring Zhang Chuyang's reaction, I turned and walked away. The day before the graduation banquet, my mom and I came home after picking out our dresses. I found Su Ro and her parents at my house. The family of 3 was lying on the couch, munching on sunflower seeds and watching TV. The villa was a complete mess, with sunflower seed shells scattered all over the floor and spilled tea everywhere. What are you doing here? I asked. Looking at them, Su Daqiang leaned back further into the sofa. What is Han talking about? We're family. After all, Ruru just got out of the hospital. It's not convenient to keep her waiting. If she doesn't stay here, where else is she supposed to stay? Just then, a servant came downstairs carrying some things. I took a closer look and realized it was actually something from my room. Noticing my gaze, Su Ro spoke with an innocent look on her face. Manhwa. Uncle said I need a good environment to recover. So I'd really appreciate it if you could stay in the attic or the guest room. Wow. They actually took over my room without even telling me. I was furious. Just as I was about to speak, my mom beat me to it and shouted, "Security! Throw this family of 3 out. Don't you dare. Do you know who I am? I'm the older brother of the man who owns this villa. If you dare lay a finger on me, I'll fire every last one of you." Su Dachiang roared menacingly. However, the security guard completely ignored them. After all, this villa was a dowry my maternal grandparents gave to my mother. The 3 people who had been thrown out were sitting at the entrance to my villa, cursing and ranting. I said calmly, "If you keep yelling, I'll call the police." As I spoke, I took out my phone. As soon as he dialed 911, the 3 of them fell silent. They got up from the ground and left with their meager belongings. Su Ro. I called out to Su Ro at that moment. "What else do you want?" Su Ro could no longer keep up the act, clutching her stomach. She looked at me with eyes full of suspicion and hatred. "Don't even think about harming my child." Ha! I scoffed. "You can't marry into the Zhang family just by relying on a child. The Zhang family values their reputation above all else. Only by making it known to everyone that you're carrying Zhang Qiang's child will the Zhang family be willing to accept you into the family openly. How can you be so kind?" Su Ro looked deeply moved. She wasn't exactly brainless, and it didn't take her long to figure it out. "Sui Han, you did this on purpose. You want the Zhang family to be dragged down with you." "Yes, I did it on purpose. I gave you the chance, take it or leave it." Not long after Su Dachiang's family left, my dad came back. In the living room, he and my mom got into a huge fight, the worst they'd ever had. Because of me. Because of Su Ro. The argument between the two started with Su Ro seducing Zhang Chuyang, but it soon escalated far beyond that. My dad feels that over the years, my mom has always thought she was better than him because she earns money, and she's constantly kept him in her shadow, which makes him feel like he's lost face. As for my mom, aside from feeling that I've been wronged, her biggest source of distress is the emotional abuse my dad has subjected me to over the years. Even my mother, who is usually so elegant and composed, couldn't help but break down at that moment. "Su Jinan, you're a coward, you're useless, and you're a chauvinist. You don't protect your own wife and children, you're heartless and blind. Jin Yunru, you're asking for it." My dad raised his hand, about to hit my mom. Of course. His slap didn't land on my mom. He was stopped by security in midair. "Beat Su Jinan to a pulp, the harder you hit him, the bigger the bonus." Suddenly, the living room was filled with Su Jinan's screams. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. Even if I had only attended a community college in my past life, I could still have made a good life for myself through hard work. They are Su Jinan, Su Ro, and Zhang Chuyang. No matter what job I look for, they'll use their influence to sabotage it. My miserable life in my past incarnation may have been partly my own fault for being so thick-headed, but from start to finish, I never did anything wrong. It's these bad guys who've been pressuring me all along. From the moment I was reborn, I wanted nothing more than to beat Su Jinan to a pulp. But when I actually did it, I didn't feel all that satisfied. Because of my mom. My mother's face was full of hurt. "Mom," I said, stepping forward to take her hand and calling out to her gently. "I'm fine," my mom said, forcing a smile at me. It wasn't until Su Jinan had been beaten into silence that my mother told the security guard. "Stop. I still can't quite bring myself to let Su Jinan off the hook." My mom patted my hand reassuringly. "Your graduation banquet is tomorrow. It wouldn't be good if this got out of hand." So I didn't say anything else. Su Jinan was taken to the hospital, and my mom had someone specifically assigned to watch over the door to his room. At night, the light in my mom's room is always on. Unable to shake my worries, I walked to the door of my mother's room. Inside, I saw her taking out all the photos of her and my father. One by one, she looked at them for a moment, reminiscing about the past, and then tore them to shreds. That's right, I only saw my dad's flaws. But I didn't see everything he and my mom had been through together. Noticing that I had arrived, my mom waved at me. I walked over and snuggled into my mom's arms. My mother's voice came from above me. Back then, when I wanted to marry your father, your maternal grandparents didn't approve. They said your father came from a poor background and wasn't very capable. But I was charmed by his sweet talk and was determined to marry him. Now that it's come to this, it seems I really did make the wrong choice. Mom. Everyone makes mistakes in life. As long as you realize them in time, that's all that matters. Besides, I looked up at my mom. Besides, if you hadn't been with Dad, you might not have had such a smart and clever daughter like me. My playful remark managed to bring a smile to my mom's face. She looked at me and asked earnestly, Han Huan, if I were to divorce your dad, could you accept that? Sure. So, would you choose to be with me? Yes. This time, I answered without hesitation. Perhaps my answer gave my mom strength. A look of confidence returned to her face. As soon as your graduation banquet is over tomorrow, I'll ask him for a divorce. Okay. I held my mom in my arms and went to sleep with her. I waited until her breathing had steadied before getting up. I found a strand of my dad's short hair on the pillow and took it with me as I left the bedroom. Early the next morning, I made up an excuse to go out and picked up Sue Ro's hair from the hospital. Then we submitted hair samples from Sue Ro and my dad, as well as from Sue Ro and the woman who delivers meals, for paternity testing. After getting home, my mom and I headed to the hotel. As noon approached, the guests began to arrive one by one. My dad was actually at the hospital recuperating, but he still managed to drag himself out of bed to attend my college entrance celebration. I was a little worried he might cause a scene at the graduation banquet. But when my mom pointed out that my dad is a very vain person, I finally relaxed. Just as my mom had expected, my dad, who usually couldn't be bothered to even glance my way, was now beaming so widely that even the bandages wrapped around his face couldn't hide his smile. Hey, old Sue, your daughter has really made something of herself. Sure. Follow me. Seeing how badly he was hurt, someone asked with concern. What happened to you? How did you get hurt so badly? A shadow of gloom crossed his deep eyes, but the smile on my father's face remained as bright as ever. Oh, come on. I was just so happy that my daughter got into Harvard. I had one too many drinks, and that's how I ended up like this. When we heard that, my mom and I exchanged a glance and both had to stifle a laugh. I have to say, he's pretty good at making excuses for himself. That talent for telling blatant lies really does come in handy. Guests streamed in one after another, and finally, just as my mom was waiting with bated breath, my grandparents arrived. Back then, my maternal grandparents were upset because my mom was so determined to marry my dad. Over the years, although I've been quietly helping my mom with her career, we've had almost no official dealings. Every time my mom goes back to visit them, they have a stern look on their faces. The two elderly people are only happy when they're with me, but deep down, I know they're just using me as an excuse to look after my mom. It's a case of loving me because they love her. Mom, Dad, you're finally here, my mom said with a sigh of relief. My grandparents looked all proud and coy. If we weren't worried that Henin's graduation banquet might be a letdown, we wouldn't have come. Okay, I'll take you inside. My mom went to help my grandparents. My classmates were all there, as were the Zhang family and Sue Ro's family. It was nearly noon, and almost all the guests had arrived, but I still hadn't seen Qin Zhou anywhere. It wasn't until then that I realized I'd been a bit rash. I don't know how well Qin Zhou did in school, nor do I know which university he got into. Yet here I am, inviting him over on a whim. Just as I was thinking that, a familiar voice suddenly came from above. Excuse me, where should I sit? I looked up and met Qin Zhou's handsome eyes. I'll take you there, I said. And a smile spread across my face before I knew it. I took Qin Zhou to the table where my high school classmates were sitting. When they saw Qin Zhou, the group of girls, who had been chatting animatedly, suddenly blushed and fell silent. Han Huan, You're really something. You actually managed to get the school heartthrob, who never gets close to anyone, to come. When I heard that, I just smiled and said nothing. The Sue Group is quite a large organization, and most of the guests at my graduation banquet were business associates. I followed my mom and dad in toasting the guests. When it was the Zhang family's turn to be seated, someone asked, "Why are you sitting with us, in-laws?" My mom smiled and said, "Well, the engagement between Henin and Chuyang has been called off. To begin with, their engagement was just a joke from years ago. It wasn't meant to be taken seriously." Everyone there was sharp, so no one pressed the matter further. On the contrary, Zhang's parents were not happy about it. However, they held back and didn't say anything. My mom wants to save face for the Zhang family, but I don't. You did something shameful and now you want to save face. There's no such thing in this world. I looked at Su Ro. She was clutching her stomach, her expression torn, as if she were struggling with whether or not to reveal right then and there that she was carrying Zhang Chuyang's child. So I decided to walk over to Zhang Chuyang, who was standing not far from her. Halfway down the road, I suddenly stumbled and fell straight forward, and right in front of me was Su Ro. Just as I was about to crash into Su Ro, I suddenly felt a firm grip around my waist. It was Qin Zhou. He had his arm around my waist. "Thank you." I straightened up in Qin Zhou's arms and thanked him. Still shaken, Su Ro was stunned. She clutched her stomach as she stood up from her chair, pointing at me and shouting accusingly, "Sui Han, you did this on purpose. You can't stand the fact that I'm carrying Chuyang's child, so you're trying to use this opportunity to make me miscarry." As soon as Su Ro spoke, the entire room erupted in an uproar. Everyone immediately understood. The reason I broke off my engagement with Zhang Chuyang was that he had been seeing my cousin and they even had a child together. Everyone present cared about their reputation, and many looked at the Zhang family with utter contempt. Mr. and Mrs. Zhang cared deeply about their reputation, and Mrs. Zhang immediately denied it. "Su Ro, what nonsense are you talking about? Our Chuyang isn't someone you can just go around hitting on." At this point, Su Ro decided to go all out. "Auntie, you know full well whether the baby in my belly is Chuyang's or not. If you really won't acknowledge it, we can just do a paternity test once the baby is born. You bitch. I'll rip your mouth off." Seeing that the Zhangs and Su Daqiang's family were about to get into another fight, my mom had the security guards kick both families out. The room fell silent once again. There was a look of sympathy in everyone's eyes as they looked at me. Of course, that doesn't include my dad. His face was ashen, and he looked as if he were about to devour me. As soon as the celebration for my college acceptance ended and I got home, my dad blew his top. "How can you two be so cruel? Ruru is carrying Zhang Chuyang's child and isn't even accepted by the Zhang family, already in a pitiful enough situation. Do you really have to drive her to her death? But doesn't she deserve it? Sui Han. Don't think I won't teach you a lesson." My dad strode toward me. The security guards stood in front of me, surrounding me tightly. "If you don't want to end up in the hospital again, go ahead and hit me. I knew you were no good. You. Enough." My mom couldn't take it anymore and cut my dad off. "Su Jinan. Let's get a divorce." "Divorce? Jin Yunru. Are you kidding me?" My dad's tone was full of shock and disdain. Clearly, in his mind, no matter how he treated my mom and me, she would never divorce him. "Yes, get a divorce," my mom declared emphatically. After taking a moment to come to terms with the reality, my dad let out a cold laugh. "Fine. Let's get a divorce. We'll split the assets 5,050. Why should we split it 5,050? Besides eating, drinking, and having fun, what have you ever contributed to this family?" I asked indignantly, but my mom said, "All right, I'll have my lawyer draw up the agreement later. It's settled." Then, after my dad went upstairs, my mom looked at me and said soothingly, "Han Huan, since we've decided to get a divorce, it's best to cut the knot cleanly. We can always earn more money, and besides, he is your father after all. It's only fair to give him a share." My mom had a point. so I didn't say anything for the time being. Seeing that my mom was okay, I told her I was going out to meet a classmate. In fact, he went to the hospital. I hope my guess is wrong. If it is, I can let Su Jinan inherit a small portion of the estate so my mother won't be too upset. When I arrived at the hospital, I received the test results without any trouble. When I opened the appraisal report and saw the results, I was so furious I could hardly breathe. I was right. Su Ro really is the child of Su Jinan and that lunch lady. I immediately took the test results home to show my mom. My mom, who had been feeling down about our decades-long marriage, was suddenly consumed by rage when she discovered that the child my dad had fathered during our marriage was 3 years older than me. Just like my mom, even when she's angry, she doesn't let her anger cloud her judgment. She called my grandparents. Tell them about this. My maternal grandparents came with my 3 uncles. My dad was in the middle of his lunch break when my 3 uncles dragged him out of bed and beat him up. Already injured, he was beaten to the point of near death. Then my eldest uncle placed a divorce agreement in front of him and asked him to sign it. When my dad saw that it said he'd have to leave with nothing, he refused to sign it no matter what. My eldest uncle snorted coldly. Su Jinan, have you thought this through? If you don't sign, I'll file charges against you for bigamy tomorrow and have you thrown in jail. Not only that, but from now on, every time I see anyone else from the Su family, I'll beat them up. You'll never amount to anything in this life. Only then did my father realize that Su Ro's secret had been exposed, and he signed his name with an ashen expression. At that moment, my parents finalized their divorce. From now on, he's no longer my dad. Su Jinan was thrown out of the villa like a piece of trash. I'm so furious. If it weren't for Henin, I'd make sure he ended up in jail. Several of my uncles were furious. My mom didn't have time to grieve. She turned her attention to comforting my grandparents and uncles. In the end, my grandparents and uncles felt so sorry for my mom and me that they insisted on having us stay with them for a while. At my grandfather's house, I felt a warmth I had never experienced before. It's so warm here that I never want to go back. My mom also thought the villa was jinxed, so she sold it off at a price well below market value. With just over a month to go before classes start at Harvard, my mom asked me, "What are your plans from here on out?" Mom, I want to do an internship at the company. Once you've dealt with the trash, making money is what really matters. I want to start learning how to run a company early on so I can take over the family business. After hearing my answer, my mom smiled and said, "That's perfect. That's exactly what I had in mind." My mom took me to buy a few business outfits. Put on your business attire and tie back your long hair. The person I see in the mirror is bold and confident, a far cry from the timid person I was in my past life. The next day, I went to the office with my mom. I witnessed my mother personally ordering the HR department to fire everyone that Su Jinan had previously placed in the company. Before long, my mom's phone was ringing off the hook in the CEO's office. "Hey, sister-in-law, we're family. After all, whatever mess Su Jinan has gotten himself into has nothing to do with me. Sis, Su Jinan and I have cut ties. It's really hard to find a job these days. Could you please spare me from being fired? For the sake of our old friendship." When it came to personal gain, the brotherly bond Su Jinan took such pride in proved to be no match. My mom, not wanting to waste her time, just blocked all of them. My mom handed me off to a senior colleague at the company, and I have a lot to learn every day. Amid all this hustle and bustle, I heard every single detail about the Zhang family and Su Daqiang's family. It's not that I want to hear about it, but there have been so many scandals involving the Zhang family lately that everyone in the industry knows about them. After Su Ro announced in front of everyone at my graduation banquet that she was pregnant with Zhang Chuyang's child, Zhang's parents, feeling that Su Ro had completely disgraced them, ordered Zhang Chuyang to cut off all contact with her. Whether it was Zhang Chuyang's deep affection or Su Ro's cunning, Zhang Chuyang actually continued to carry on with Su Ro behind his parents' backs. When Zhang's mother found out by chance, she was so upset that she ended up in the hospital. As for the Zhang group, their unscrupulous actions caused several major partnership projects to fall through, resulting in heavy losses. Watching the company's stock price fall day after day, Mr. Zhang was at his wit's end. And that's not all. It turned out that Su Ro had no idea she was an illegitimate child who couldn't come out into the open. When she found out that the woman delivering the meals was her own mother, she lashed out at Su Jinan and her own mother, calling them shameless. In a fit of anger, she miscarried the baby she was carrying. Now that she had lost her child, Su Ro would never have the chance to marry into the Zhang family. Her standing in the Su family plummeted. She stopped acting aloof and started trying to win Su Jinan back. After all, Su Jinan had money. The reason Su Jinan agreed so readily to sign the divorce papers with my mother was, first, because he was afraid of going to prison and afraid of my uncles, and second, because he had a secret stash of money and quite a substantial one at that. But having grown accustomed to a life of luxury, how could he possibly stand seeing his savings dwindle day by day? Under Su Laosan's influence, Su Jinan became addicted to gambling. In less than a month, millions were lost. Without money to fall back on, Su Jinan could no longer count on the Su family's flattery and favor, and was driven out of the house. I'd heard from a former neighbor at the villa that Su Jinan, looking disheveled and down and out, had come looking for me and my mom there, but unfortunately, the villa had long since changed hands, so he couldn't find us. As I listened once again to others discussing the miserable plight of those people, I realized that I didn't feel particularly moved. I've long been worlds apart from them. No matter how things turn out for them, I'll do my best to keep improving. On the first day of school at Harvard, Zhang Chuyang stopped me at the school gate. Han Huan, Su Ro and I have completely cut ties. We grew up together, we've known each other since childhood. Will you forgive me this once? The funny thing is, I actually saw a genuine depth of feeling in Zhang Chuyang's eyes. Some people are just like that. They don't appreciate what comes easily, yet they obsess over what they can't have. I'm sorry, but I won't forgive you. Every time I look at Zhang Chuyang, I feel like I'm wasting my life. I walked right past Zhang Chuyang and into the school grounds. A familiar figure came into view. It's Qin Zhou. He was holding his acceptance letter as well. It was as if it were waiting for me. When he saw me, he walked over and asked, "Want to go cover the story together?" Okay. I nodded and walked side by side with Qin Zhou. Let bygones be bygones. We have no fear of the future. I will eventually become the person I want to be.